First of all, my employer, Queensland Competition Authority, has a tradition or practice of hiring foreign employee. We have a culture here that we have a diverse background. We do take in a lot of cultures and open culture atmosphere. I think I'm adding more to it because this is such a big world. You can have people from everywhere. I think I'm the first person from China mainland. First thing I think I brought was this global awareness. So I'm not saying you have to go overseas or from overseas to have this perspective, but for a person who actually come from a foreign country, they just have that more broad or well-rounded thing saying, I was from the other side of the world, and I know I sort of have more overseas experience and values, and that's bringing into this organization. I think I'm bringing in my values, my attitude as Chinese, I would say, because East Asian countries value hard work a lot and value teamwork a lot and that sort of thing. I do think I have a slightly different Oriental way of thinking. Problem-solving skills, analytical skills. It might have a little bit cultural background thing. I would say it's more the education I received, the middle school, high school education I received. I do think a little bit differently, and sometimes that brings something more in the work we do. So China is a very, very important partner, both economics and other parts of our national affairs, to Australia. We recently signed an Australia-China Free Trade Agreement. The collaboration between the two countries is more and more strengthened. And for me, as a foreign staff or professional from China background, I do think that's my strength, and also that's something I would add to my workplace. I do think for international students like me, who grew up in China, who had a solid high school education, but also have a higher education here in Australia, to have the perspective from both cultures, who has this understanding, but also bilingual sort of. I think my generation is able to bridge any of the gap into future business, political cooperation, cultural exchange, everything. I think that's what people like me are bringing between the two countries.
So I've been working in London for a year now, and it's been really fun, both on the work side and on the personal side. On the work side, I've been lucky in that I've really enjoyed my workplace and get along very well with my colleagues, and also enjoy the work I'm doing. On the personal side, it's also been so accessible to travel, which is really fun. So lots of weekend trips to Europe and fun things like that. And I've got some friends who have moved overseas as well, so it's been very accessible for being able to see them. I think also as a graduate, throwing yourself into a new city when you're young and sort of having to take on all those, adult responsibilities of rent and bills and sort of looking after yourself can be really daunting. And is really daunting when you move to a new city. So it's been nice to sort of immerse myself in that, but also build confidence in that, and now feel very secure and sort of, back myself a bit more and understand that, I'm capable in both work and personal life. I found working overseas really valuable in the year that I've been here. I've come to the UK, so it's not hugely different to Australia, but something that's been really different to the work I was doing in Brisbane is that I'm now working with global clients and also with European teams and other London teams. So it's been really interesting to understand the work styles of different countries, as well as in the UK. I know that something that really struck me was the difference in the way PRs talk to journalists in the UK compared to how we do in Australia, and even the structure of a press release and things like that was really different. And it's really good to be able to learn those skills and, increase my adaptability, I guess, in a global workplace. And knowing that I've got skills that I can go back to Australia one day and go, well, here's how we did it in the UK and that was really effective, or here's how we did it back in Oz and that was also really effective. And being able to know that, and also knowing that I can work with teams in other countries and say, okay, for instance, I've learned that Americans can be very corporate focused and very corporate speaking and all about, particularly with big companies, pleasing their investors. And so you've got to sort of adapt to that work style, and you can't always be as creative as you want. And then the Europeans, particularly in communication style, like our German team can be very direct and very honest, whereas, people in the UK might be a bit more subtle and not want to offend. So that's been really interesting to learn. I think my experience here will be valuable in Australia, definitely. I think it probably depends on the kind of role I go for, but certainly being able to say, well, I've worked in the UK and I've worked with teams in the US and all through Europe and in the UK and in Australia and in Asia. I think that's a huge advantage, particularly when you're having to work in teams. And often, I'm sure in Australia, there's plenty of companies that have global accounts and have to do that kind of coordination as well. So I think that's a really handy skill. And also just having the relationships here as well is really convenient, I think.
I think the value of working globally is threefold. The first thing is that there are certain parts of the world that simply have a greater concentration of work. And that's a reality. And you will get better because of the competition and the heat around those areas. The second thing you realize is that what works in Australia socially, culturally, and from an employability point of view doesn't always work everywhere else. And you need to work around that. But you also realize, and this is the third thing, that there are things about learning and living in Australia that are very helpful elsewhere in the world, and you often take them for granted when you live in Australia. But when you work globally, you realize what a rare combination of things being an Australian is. And so it's a bit of yin and yang, but I think both those things are very valuable, in addition to just exposure to global markets and different areas of the world that have different types of work.